Scientific communication helps in accurate and clear exchange of scientific knowledge. Therefore, this science communication workshop aims at informing the participants about scientific methodology and polishing their communication skills. Let us welcome our guest speaker, Mr. Lalith Kishore, who will be joining us at the workshop. Mr. Lalith Kishore completed his Master's in Technology Management from BITS Pilani. He is an experienced application scientist in discovery sciences, genomic and protein sciences, and a technology application development researcher. He has 8 years of experience as a team leader and lab manager with Contract Research Service Organization in the USA. Also, he has more than 12 years of industry experience in GE Healthcare as applications and science technology specialist, supporting technology collaborations with pharma and academia. He is also involved in large projects like the Indian Rice Genome Project, India's first clinical proteomics project, multiple biosimilarity projects with biopharma companies, the CCAM Index project under Atmanirbhar Bharat for indigenization of diagnostics in India. He is also a TED speaker, which endorses his excellent communication and oration skills. We are really excited to have with us Mr. Lalith Kishore.
Great. Welcome, Lalith. So now floor is all yours.
Thanks, Dr. Sanjeeva. Thanks for that amazing introduction. I always think that once you somehow manage to give one TED talk, you can milk that in your introduction for the rest of your life. Because for the rest of your life, that becomes part of your introduction. But I want this session to be about communication, and like you said, science communication. There is no way that so I'm going to share my screen or desktop, if that is okay, Dr.
Yes.
Dr. Sanjeeva.
Yeah.
I hope everyone can see my screen, right?
We can see your PPT.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the idea
make
is
it full screen, just
I did make it full screen actually.
Yeah, now we can see that. Great.
Okay, let me just make it full screen. There you go. Okay. Now I do not see any reason why any of us should separate communication from science communication to start with. But the more important thing is that as we grow in the field of science and technology, there seems to be a certain amount of separation, if you will, from what is happening in the real world. Increasingly, scientists and technologists find it extremely difficult to communicate with people. And just as an example, and it frustrates me, if you look at the US, for example, more than about close to about 40 to 45% of the people do not believe in the theory of evolution in the US. Close to about 65% do not believe that man landed on the moon. About 35% of the people in the US today need to be convinced about the need for vaccination for COVID. They're against vaccination. They believe all kinds of things about vaccination. I think that all of these, while can be attributed to superstition, religion, a lot of other things, the primary thing that it can be attributed to is the fact that scientists or technologists failed to communicate well, and that resulted in people kind of distancing themselves from science and technology. As people who work in the lab and learning from great teachers like Dr. Sanjeeva right now, I'm sure you'll become very intense, very focused scientists and technologists. But the important thing that you always need to keep in mind is, am I communicating this well? The other thing where communication plays a role also is that, well, I think quite a few of you might end up as lifelong researchers, as researchers that work while teaching or researching fundamentally. A lot of you will also end up in the industry. And more, the technology and research arenas are expanding very fast into the industry. And within the industry, both within the company where you work as well as to the outside world, more and more to your finance teams, to your logistics teams, to your customers, clients, patients, whichever industry you're in, you need to communicate and you need to communicate effectively. My attempt through this presentation right now to you all is to see if I can let you know how it is so important for us to keep communicating effectively. And I thought that will make it slightly interactive. So, Dr. Sanjeeva, please feel free to call in any of the students who are raising their hands because I am looking at a full screen. So, please, if someone wants to come in, please come in.
Sure.
Yeah, but I just want to take a very simple example and then go through some things that I feel are important for communication. And for one moment, I could have taken some of the technologies that you're all very familiar with. But if I take a technology that you're familiar with, then you'll look at it as technologies. So I wanted to put you on the back seat a little bit and talk about this brand new motorcycle. Okay. And what an amazing motorcycle this is. I mean, when you look at it.
Sorry to
Hello.
interrupt.
Yes, sir.
We still see only your, title slide.
Oh, you do. I
Right.
did
Yeah,
not.
now we can see motorcycle. Yeah.
Okay, slow. I think the transition will be a little slow. So
Okay.
I'll also kind of keep that in mind as I move. Um, so let us say that you're technologists, right, developing this world-class motorcycle and fantastic motorcycle that it is. You want to tell the world about this motorcycle. Okay. Now here is what, and the slide will take a moment to come in. So I decided this morning I wanted to name it something. So I decided to call this motorcycle the IIT Kick. Okay. So this is the motorcycle that I
Nice.
have. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. This is the poster that I made, all of you. Okay. To introduce the brand new motorcycle. Okay. Called the IIT Kick. And I do not have the patience to read what is written on the right side of the screen. But please tell me if you like this motorcycle. The picture looks good. Do you understand what the motorcycle is? I don't want to see a raise of hands. There's 200 people. But when you see on the right side, it says maximum torque is 22 newtons per Newton meters, I think. Ignition ECU, speeding way is 6 speed, EFI fuel supply, 4 stroke, liquid cold, vertical type, 4 value. Okay. Now, one of the things with this kind of communication, imagine this is the communication your team that manufactured or that developed this wonderful, wonderful motorcycle. If this is what you put out, imagine you had someone standing on the streets and in the malls and giving out these posters that were printed like this.
So,
How
Lalit, we can
attractive.
see the image, but we can't see any data on that, any labels.
You,
Now we can see.
yes, yes, yes. So on the right side, you see some data, I'm hoping.
Now we can see that, yeah, entire
Yes.
text.
So the entire text. When you see this as a poster, my friends, how many of you will say, wow, I love this motorcycle because all my life I've been looking for a 22 Newton meter, 7,500 RPM motorcycle. Let me go get it. The sad answer is, while this communicates all the attributes of the motorcycle, this doesn't say anything about it actually. It's so many attributes have been poured into this communication that while the details are all there, the communication has not been achieved. You've still not told someone how great this motorcycle is. And this is a problem that we run into when we try to describe our products or our technologies, or indeed when you try and explain your research to someone. For example, if you were the inventor of this technology, of this motorcycle, and if you were trying to get funded for this motorcycle, and you are sitting in front of a banker, say for example, someone who has a lot of money, an equity fund, a private equity fund, if you sit in front of him and reel off these attributes, maximum power is 19.5 kilowatt, compression ratio is 11 is to 3 is to 1. What does it mean to the banker? Have you communicated effectively? The answer is no, you haven't communicated effectively because you have only taken the attributes and put them onto your communication. You've spoken about it, you put it in a PowerPoint, you make a printout of it, you make a slide deck of it, you have a video of it, whatever tools you use, what you've communicated is attributes and doesn't mean anything to me, right? Now let me take the same thing, and I know the slide will take a transition. So please, some Dr. Sanjeeva, tell me that you see the slide with the new enhanced thing, where I have the picture of the motorcycle, and it is benefit communication. Okay. Now on the right side to this poster, I say it's a lightweight motorcycle. It's a very maneuverable motorcycle. It's a sporty motorcycle. It's got balance and safety, and the engine has been tested, right? Or if I say it has 8 cylinders, low fuel, easy to handle, does this sound a slightly better communication? The answer is yes. It is slightly better and a different communication because here I have taken the technology, and instead of communicating all the attributes, I have communicated the benefits. Now, how many of us still
Yeah, I think we need to click the next one again. Somehow we see that lot of text on this slide.
one second. Do you see the?
It's still the same introducing IT kick
Okay.
slide.
Do you see this now?
Not yet.
One second. Let me wait.
Would you like me to play the things from my side here, and you can tell me next?
Yes, I could do that, but I need to mail you the slides then.
Okay, right. That's okay. If you can continue, but
Sure. Do you see the small purple boxes on the right side?
no. Still, we have the same slide of IT kick.
Okay. Let me just.
Maybe you can unshare and share again. That will work.
I'm doing that. Just going to go stop sharing, and then I'm going to share the screen once again, and I'm to the presentation. Do you see my slide?
It's coming something black right now. Having some issues, it seems. Not yet.
That's okay.
Yeah, now came but the same slide, IT kick.
IT kick, but do you see the picture with lightweight, maneuverable, sporty? You do not see that?
No.
Let me see if I can just quickly. Why is this?
Maybe you can skip the full screen mode. Sometimes that actually helps.
Works? Okay, let me try that. I've stopped sharing. I'm sharing the tray.
Yeah, slides show some participants also saying that full screen mode sometimes have problem.
How does this look?
Not yet coming. We can see. You have to share it again. I don't see it yet.
Yes, I'm just trying to share it again. Is this better?
I can see that slide again, IT kick.
The first slide, is that, or which slide do you see?
I can see that lightweight maneuverable.
Yeah. Good. Maybe I'll keep it in this mode and probably expand the screen a bit so that you can see
Okay,
it.
right.
Can you see it better?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So what we are doing here in this mode of communication is we're talking about the benefits of this new motorcycle. Slightly better way to communicate. Still not perfect because you still do not go to a motorcycle shop and say, I want something for balance and safety, right? So you have attribute communication, you have benefit communication, and then finally, I hope you can see this slide where we talk about agile, stable, efficient. And I hope you can see this slide, Dr. Sanjeeva.
I can see 3 boxes. Yeah, so, but that is not, I think, the term which you are suggesting.
Is it agile, stable, efficient? That's what you see here?
No.
Why are we missing? What's happening with the presentation? Give me 1 minute. Dr. Sanjeeva, can you SMS me your email ID? Let me email it to you right now.
Okay, okay, sure. I'll do that.
Just give me a minute.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I will continue to talk, but I will email my.
Yes, yes, yeah.
I'm just stopping the sharing. The idea is that most often we are looking for a value in a product. Okay, we are not looking for attributes. No one goes to the shop and says, give me, give me, give me a 15.5 Newton meter, um, motorcycle. No one says that. Everyone says, give me a motorcycle. In India, I mean, I'm sure that in India, you might have seen, most often people talk about, kitna deta hai. They always says that, I want a fuel efficient motorcycle. A fuel efficiency is mostly about a benefit, right? But people say, give me a safe motorcycle. Now you're talking. You're talking real business, because now this is much, much more than anything that you would have kind of you would have come across. So people usually, and this is very important for everyone to recognize, people mostly are buying a value. People are not buying, people are definitely never, actually, I will say never buying an attribute or never looking for an attribute. And in many cases, like I will show a couple of case studies, and I've just sent it to you, Dr. Srivastava, so you should get it in a couple of moments.
All right, yeah.
When you communicate, make sure that you're not communicating the attributes. You're communicating not just the attributes, but the benefits, and more importantly, the value of what you're communicating is most important. Unfortunately, we are lost in the attributes of what we are trying to talk about rather than the value. The You should put the person you're communicating to front and center while communicating, not the other way around. When you do it other way around, you put yourself in the center, you're not serving their purpose. That is the reason I'm showing you this pitch. I hope you got the pitch, Dr. Srivastava, so that you can.
I'm refreshing, but not yet. Is the file size too big or okay?
It's about 10 MB.
That should be okay.
That should be okay, right? So I thought.
Not received
I mean, that whole concept of how big a file is has changed over the years so much that we are very casually talking about exchanging about 10 MB. It's about 12 MB of a file. But so the important thing to realize is to keep the person that you're communicating with front and center while you communicate, right? Now imagine in this case, and as Dr. Srivastava tries to bring I want a show of hands. If my technology is a motorcycle, who is the buyer of motorcycles? Can anyone tell me who buys motorcycles most often? Most often. Anyone? You can put your chat box and tell me who buys motorcycles. Youngsters buy motorcycles. Wow, that is a very common answer, isn't it? Now let me ask the question. Youngsters buy motorcycles is the answer. And now a lot of people are raising hands and saying youngsters buy. I will challenge that. I say that mostly parents that buy the motorcycle. Young generally are they get to motorcycles, but I think the dads and mothers usually buy the motorcycles. Agree? Suppose I'm communicating. I hope you agree, right? People who can afford it, that's middle class and rich people. Kanak Sangvi says, yes, people who can afford it. I agree, people who can afford it buy motorcycles, Kanak. But people who can afford motorcycles, in that group, parents, youngsters buy the motorcycle. Youngsters, go home motorcycle, I was like motorcycle, but the parents buy. Okay. So then we communicate this great technology to. We
Lalith,
communicate it to the.
could you send me on the WhatsApp?
We communicate it absolutely good, sir. Just 1 second. I'm sending it to you through WhatsApp. That's perfectly possible. Just 1 second. I have sent it. Second. It is because so common for us to exchange things on WhatsApp now that even IIT Mumbai open. Dr. Shiv, it is a large going. All right.
I received it now. I got it. So I'll share my screen.
Fantastic, sir. Thank you. So to our discussion, right? So I parents, right? Either the mothers or the fathers. Now, if I and let Dr. Srivastava share the screen and let us go to slide number in a minute. Slide number 4 first, and then right. Yes.
Is it the right one?
Absolutely much. I can see my own screen itself together. There you go. Go back to slide number 4, sir. Go back one slide. So my take is that this is what you see on the screen right now is value communication. When you tell someone this bike is agile, this bike is stable, this what you see right now on the screen is benefit communication. You're saying it's a lightweight vehicle, it's a maneuverable vehicle, it's a sport. Now let's take these benefits for one these three together, lightweight, maneuverable, sporty. These are the benefits of this vehicle. But together, they become a value, which comes in the value tested engine together become one. And 8-cylinder, low fuel, easy to handle become one value. How do they become values? Dr. Srivastava, next. If you go to the next slide, you will see that each of these become a value. I say it's agile, it is stable, and it's an efficient vehicle. It's an agile vehicle. Let us just take that example for 1 second. It's agile means it's maneuverable. Maneuverable means aisa cut marta hai. You can overtake anyone you want. You can move this way, that way. You know, if you see two vehicles, you can overtake both of them and zigzag and go away. Right? Now imagine that it's a great value. It's a beautiful thing. It's very attractive. All the youngsters on this group, all the girls and boys who are seeing this agile part of the story, they're saying, wow, this bike I like. Now imagine the salesperson saying this to your father when he goes to the showroom. And worse still, imagine he says this to your mother. No, I'm not interested in that kind of a vehicle for my son. For your mother, the value is stable, right? She wants a more stable, safe, balanced engine has been tested, right? Your father probably wants an efficient vehicle, right? An efficient vehicle, low fuel consumption, sturdy, that kind of a thing. So if you go to the next slide, basically, has your bike changed? The next slide, sir. Next one, the forward. Yeah. So the IIT Kick is the same bike. It's lightweight, maneuverable, and sporty, right? Which means that these are the benefits. That means it's actually agile. So agile, that word agile is a value, okay? Lightweight, maneuverable, sporty is a benefit. And the 4 specs that you see down there, which are the attributes, okay? Nobody in a communication, in any communication, scientific or otherwise, is interested in the attributes. They may be interested in the benefits, but usually they're looking for a value. It doesn't mean that the attributes are not important, but you should always start with the value. You should always start with, let me introduce you to an agile motorcycle. It's lightweight, it's maneuverable, and it's sporty. And it is all of these because it has a maximum torque, ignition, blah, 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 the attributes. Whereas as technologists and scientists, quite often we tend to emphasize on the attributes. We get lost in these attributes. Whatever it is, whether it is a proteomics experiment, whether it is a new drug, whether it is an interaction analysis, whatever it is, we get lost in the nitty gritty of things, whereas we need to communicate the benefit and the value effectively. I think that circle needs to be complete. Go to the next slide. This agile is for the youngster, whereas if you go to the next, it is stable, right? That means it's got balance and safety, it's got a tested, reliable engine. That is because it's stable. What makes it balance and safety and tested, reliable engine? Then we give the similarly. If you go to the next slide, sir, we can talk about its efficiency. It's single cylinder, it's low fuel, easy to handle, it's efficient. So when we start to communicate with someone, let us start to communicate with them. Even in a science communication, a technology communication, start with the value that they go for, and then slowly bring them to the benefit, and then finally conclude with the attributes. If you start with the reverse, you will never be able to communicate. So if you go one more slide, what we are saying is agile, stable, and efficient, and then give all the benefits and all the stuff. One more slide, sir, and I'll tell you this is very important. The next slide. This is very important. Remember, communication is not just about what is. What is like in the previous lecture, the stuff the nitty gritty, the details, the data that you note down in your lab books, all of that stuff. But when you slowly make it into a workable technology or a presentable paper or a patentable idea, then slowly you're moving away from all of those nitty gritty to solid benefits, to actual values that may be of attraction to people. And within those values, remember that based on your audience, the values change. Agile is something that you as a rider are looking for. All the boys and girls on this call are looking for agile. Your mom is looking for stable, your dad is looking for efficient. So depending on who you're talking to, you will have to kind of change things around a little bit and go first with what is of greatest value to them. That is when you communicate better. When imagine if you sit down for a conversation, and if your friend or whoever you're talking to says, I don't care what you think, this is what I want to tell you, right? That is what happens in most communication in a very subtle way, because you're saying, I don't care about what your values are. These are the details. Ab le lo and do whatever you want, right? Doesn't work that way. It works only if you grab the attention of the people you're communicating to, the community, the country, individual, whoever you're communicating to, by attaching your details to the core values that they are looking for. That is when the communication connection happens. Next slide, sir. You might think that hey, this is very far off. Let me show you. Sometimes you have to prove things with evidence. In my case, I work for GE Healthcare Life Sciences. A lot of times we had to either communicate to the buyers who were doctors or hospitals or diagnostic clinics, or even patients sometimes. Or sometimes we had to communicate with clinical evidence, and sometimes we have to communicate with economic evidence. Now, if I go and give economic evidence, so this is the most affordable, the cheapest way to do things. And if I try to sell it to a doctor, never works, because a doctor at the end of the day is a businessman. So he says, oh my God, I was getting so much money from every patient. Now that's going to go down. So for him, I have to go with clinical evidence. Whereas if I was communicating to a patient, I might have to go with economic evidence. So if I have to, how do I differentiate things from the competition? Or will a customer pay premium? Sir, a customer used to pay you so much for it. Now he will pay you so much more. Anytime I had to do this, I had to go and build a value, and then just saying something doesn't work. Once you say something out there, whether it's an attribute, a benefit, or a value, you have to prove that value with evidence. And evidence, if you say that mine is a very agile motorcycle, you'll have to prove it with evidence. What are the attributes, what are the benefits, what are the attributes, and how can you prove it? About 100 people who drive it said that they used to spend 2,000 rupees on petrol, now they only spend 1,000 rupees. So you'll have to build evidence, and evidence building is extremely important when you start to do communication. So next slide, sir. And evidence generation is a very, very, very tedious process. A lot of times in the industry, we are struck with trying to show evidence, outcome evidence generation is what we do. First thing is we say, okay, what are the outcomes we want to prove? What's the aim of the study or the experiment? We define the outcomes to support our values, and then we do studies. We say that this is a better clinical device. Then that is what we want to prove, that more people get cured when they use this drug. Then we say these are the studies that we will do to prove this. And then we take the data out, and then we say what are the communication tools that are required to support either our sales force, our doctors, or anyone to engage with people in these outcomes. If you go to the next slide, and I'll just go, if you can go to the next slide, and I'll engage you with for a few minutes. Sometimes when we get that evidence, we can give you long paper. Imagine I had to sell a motorcycle to you and I give you a big, thick book, this big, okay? Every nut and bolt and every engine data and all that. This itna bada book in your hand, this big a book in your hand, and say, chalo, read this, and then you'll be convinced that we are the better technology. Imagine that you are going for a drug, to buy a drug for chemotherapy. Imagine that someone is actually having a open heart surgery happening, and you have to replace a valve, and the doctor is saying, do you want this valve or this valve? And then you either get a big book. Imagine that we had recent cases where, like, some actresses like Shilpa Shetty or Kareena Kapoor, who became mothers, they came and advertised and said, look, there is this pregnancy test. Very good. It's a very nice way to do it. But imagine that you were sitting outside a hospital deciding on a heart valve, and suddenly they gave you a brochure with Shilpa Shetty or Kareena Kapoor. Not a good tool, right? So obviously, the tools that you choose to communicate have to be very, very carefully chosen. The methods and the modes that you choose have to be very, very carefully chosen. Only then you can communicate effectively. I'll give you some examples. So next slide. Be bold with your communication, okay? Just raise the importance of the benefit. Improve the perception in the other person's mind of what you're saying. Be clear, bold, okay? And then be compelling. To be compelling, you have to address emotional benefits, rational, reasonable benefits, economic benefits. You'll have to talk about everything, because it has to be an all-round compelling evidence that has to be built. Differentiate your story from other people's stories. Sometimes people tell the same story, okay? If I look at the way that people communicate, say, fruity, maza, and sliced, I see the advertisement, I don't know which juice it is. Finally, it's mango juice, but the differentiation is not there in my head. It must be very simple for people to understand. The most important thing in communication is, the first thing is you have to address the person. He has to understand and he has to agree with you and all of that stuff. But the even more important thing is he should be able to go and retell the same story to someone else. If it is already so confusing for him or impossible for him to understand or get it and be compelled by it for action, how will he go to someone else? You paint a good picture, paint a decent picture of what is happening to the person that you're communicating to, and then put the comparison across. That is when you communicate well. So the next slide. And I want you to engage with me as you go through this is just one. I mean, at the end of the day, people looked at the Cancer Research Organization, the American Heart Association, and the American Association for the Aged, I think, and said, 1 in 3 people will get cancer, 1 person will die out of CVD every 33 seconds, and 1 in 8 people over 65 already has Alzheimer's disease in the world right now. When you look at this is very compelling. All the data that goes into it, all of the stuff that goes into it, finally you get very bold kind of communication out there saying this is what it is. So now let us do research on cancer, or let us work with heart disease, or let us do neurodegenerative disease research. This kind of compelling communication sometimes is extremely important. To kind of jolt people into action, you need to be very, very bold. Last slide, I think, sir. We can just take me to the slides. These are just a few examples. Some person asked, just now, and I was compelled, I was thinking, and I thought, you get tons of data, so much statistics to look at, so much data, but it is not what you look at that matters. It's what you see clearly. That's what matters. Make sure that you're able to pinpoint to that exact thing that you want people to see. Tons of data is not communication. that, pinpointing towards, like Dr. Srivastava talked about, those two biomarkers out of the 20,000 that you picked up. How do you communicate that effectively and show the importance of having those out there? That is more important. Next slide, sir. There are times in communication where, I don't know if you kind of, sometimes I show this picture and ask people, do you know what this picture is? Anyone wants to raise a hand and say, I know what this picture is?
Yeah, I can share and take there,
Yeah, please. Anyone who wants to share, tell me what that picture is.
Yes, I'll share the screen again. Yeah.
Yes, please. Kanak wants to say that he knows, I think. I don't know. So,
sir,
anybody?
The first one is a rocket launch.
Yeah.
Second one is also, I think, a rocket, but like a close-up.
Okay.
I don't know the third one.
No, but this is a story, my friend. All three together is a fantastic story. History.
So I think the third one could be the inside of a hangar of a space shuttle which has already been built, and those might be the leftovers.
You're somewhere in the vicinity, quite far, but still, you entered the city, let us say, of the story. This is the Space Shuttle Challenger.
I think this is about the crash.
Yes, you're right. This is about the crash.
It was the icy conditions that led to the leak in the gaskets.
Absolutely. The leaking gas, the gasket, the expanding gasket that Richard Feynman was holding and telling the congressional committee, that happened because of the icy conditions during the launch. The gasket's expansion was not taken into effect. And so a 25-cent gasket that led to the space shuttle disaster. And what you see down there is every single part of that was collected from the ground, reassembled in grids so that they could find out where the fault was. But sometimes those details matter in communicating stuff. How do you communicate is very, very important. I just wanted you to get that glimpse of a very beautiful way to tell a story, and not much difficult. But the idea is that the devil is always in the details. Do not miss out that minute detail that can tell the whole story. It is, while I say that, while even Dr. Srivastava said, hey, it's not necessary for you to put tons of data into your notebook somehow. It is important to have those pointers, and that those insights are what make you special and the story special. If you could go to the next slide, and I'll just tell you the next slide. It's a fantastic. And again, no big prizes for the guesses, but do you know where these pictures are from?
Bhopal gas tragedy.
Sadly, yes, these are from the Bhopal gas tragedy. Again goes back to detail, but really, that was the most moving image, was the one to the left, but the one to the right was that that reactor that actually burst out, that had the methyl isocyanate
And
in it
this
that
is the
night.
state of disrepair of that particular factory from which the gas leaked out. So
Absolutely.
it was in such a state of disrepair, and they had to rely on human senses to sense the gas leakage.
Absolutely. Sometimes communicating human emotions, pause. You will have to pause, take a moment, and then tell your story. But how do you communicate that? Okay, very, very important to take a very look at it and say it. See, I did not need words, I did not need attributes, I did not need anything to get that story out very quickly, very fast from you. I'll tell you another funny story. Next slide, sir. Do you know what this is? This is the story of work and human intelligence. Any guesses? What is that thing on the top?
The Hubble telescope.
Hubble telescope. Very good. And what are the pictures from the bottom?
The galaxies.
Milky Way.
Milky Way, galaxies, all that is fine.
Galaxy.
But the story
The
is.
first image is blurred, and the second is clear.
So do you know the story of the blurred image and the clear image? When Hubble telescope was went into space, they did not take into consideration the slight temperature difference that would cause the lenses of the telescope to expand slightly more in space. So by the time it went into space, it had developed eyesight. So what it needed was it needed corrective lenses. So Hubble telescope was repaired by providing. So Hubble telescope, if you think of it as a human guy, it's wearing spectacles right now. The spectacles for this particular telescope were developed by a very famous company that we all know, especially in life sciences, then Perkin Elmer. So Perkin Elmer got the contract for developing the corrective lenses. And one of the things that Perkin Elmer was told was that don't forget that your lenses also might expand. Okay. So they did actually take it into consideration and sent the corrective lenses, which are being applied by the astronaut there. But eventually that led to some of the most spectacular views of the universe that we have right now. And so it's also, scientific communication is also about communicating the sheer work that you do, the rigor that you put in. Dr. Srivastava's 12 notebooks are far larger than his very, very concise PhD thesis. And I can vouch for this. Okay, while his notebooks may be a very good guide to how to write and record for both posterity or for yourself in great detail the work, I can vouch for this that his very concise thesis will also make for extremely great reading, because it should convey that rigor, it should convey that work and that intelligent insight in a very precise manner. So while that is important, this is the way to tell your story. Communicate it very effectively. I just want the next picture, sir. Just one more. And this is also something that I like. Sometimes communicating cutting edge is very important. You're scientists, so what I find missing is that factor of, do you even have an idea of what I'm doing? Obviously, everyone knows what is there to the left. Can anyone tell me what are those things?
Maybe cardiac cells.
Cardiac cells. But you know how I bring in the awe and the wonder in the communication when I show this picture is, yes, these are cardiac cells. But guess what? These are not cardiac cells from a human being or an animal. These are cardiac cells that were taken out. They're human embryonic stem cell derived cardiomyocytes, which means we took human embryos, we played with them, and we make heart cells in a petri dish. So these are made by us, heart cells. Amazing story, isn't it? Suddenly, it becomes, and you know what? The rate of beating of these cells is very similar to the original heart cells. Amazing. Suddenly you tell a story that shows cutting edge in science. I think every one of you should take that pride, like Dr. Srivastava mentioned before also, pride in the work that you do, and show to the world that this is not simple science that I'm doing. This is not simple tech. This is, it's going to change the world. And that has to come out in the way that you communicate. I hope that you can imbibe that spirit of I'm changing the world while I work into your communication. And that's the reason why I wanted to show you this picture. The next slide, sir. So then I keep telling people about, it's important. And you know why I'm showing this slide? First, I show that slide, okay? And I say that is science, okay? Because I made it in a petri dish. Oh, but where do you use it? For anyone who has a heart attack. So what's so great? What is so great is that in Bangalore alone, we have close to about 1,500 heart attacks in a single day. That means in a month, how many do we have? 45,000. How many cities do we have? We have about 50 such cities. 50 times 50,000 is about 2.5 million. 2.5 million people have to be treated with cardiomyocytes every month. This, you can't do it in small petri dishes. You need to industrialize and bring technology to science. And that's what we do as technologists. So as scientists, we create this. As technologists, we create that. Suddenly you build this entire story around why both the science that you're doing and the technology you're doing is important. Next slide, sir. Sometimes I take a playful attitude to communication, but still make a very, very important fact. So we have Holmes and Watson, and this is from the popular TV show, you have the movie here and stuff like that. But remember, you need. So the reason I say this is sometimes I say Holmes and Watson. I wish we had them, but we don't. Instead, we have this machine, and then I show them the next machine. But the next slide, sir. And then I talk about the fact that we have a DNA profiling system that from the crime scene you can take one swab, and from the suspect you can take one swab, put both the swabs in this machine, and within 60 minutes it will match the DNA and tell you whether this fellow is the culprit or not. So we have both Holmes as well as Watson built into one system. Holmes actually figures out who the culprit is, Watson does all the basic work. And those are actually the names of the modules on the system. But when I introduce systems, sometimes I tend to bring people to the attention to people by actually talking about, what the a little bit more playful way of communicating, but I still do bring technology to the fore. The next slide, sir. Basically comes back to pride. Okay, when you beat Schumacher, you have to show some pride. I like the picture for the sheer pride. I think that one of the things that's missing in science and technology students is that intense pride in what you do. I understand that the rigor of work, of getting up in the morning, of experiment after experiment, specific lows in life when your experiments don't work that well, all of that put together gives you that little bit of a, kind of makes you a little bored. But I think on a day-to-day basis, well, that's okay. Overall, I think that pride in showing of your work and communicating your work to the world will not only mean that you will do better work, you will communicate better, everyone will know, but also it's very important because the outside world is what is actually working, taking this in and deciding whether more science and technology should be there or not. The funding authorities, the different agencies is filled with. While there are a lot of scientists and scientific thinking people, technologists are basically led by as well as fed by a lot of quote unquote, for lack of a better word, laymen, and communicating to the entire world about the importance of what you do is extremely important. Last slide. I I just wanted to take 1 minute and tell you that write it down if you will, or maybe I'll share this. I've already shared the presentation with Dr. Srivastava. He'll share it with you. When you're trying to communicate, you have to build a pathway. It's not just, maine communicate kar diya. I just finished it. No. About anything, you have to create awareness. Once people are aware, they have to start to consider what you're talking. Then they have to think of acquiring what you're talking. Then think of actually taking that to service. And then finally, they have to be loyal soldiers for you. They have to go out and tell everyone else about it. Take the example of the COVID vaccination right now. And this is a very simple thing for you to do. If you have to do this exercise of building awareness, of getting people to consider taking the vaccine, and then acquire the vaccine, and then find out where can I get the vaccination done and all that, and then finally build a loyal crowd of people who say, no, 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 you also go get vaccinated, retell your story to other people. Who are the people who should do it? Who should create awareness? Who should create the consideration? Who should enable all of this? If you just put yourself in the mind. If I had the scientists go and talk about it, only some people are listening. So is it better if I had Akshay Kumar go and talk about this? In which case, maybe we should recruit him, right? Or if I want to build loyalty, how do I build it? Do we build more and more online stories of people who took that vaccine and did not get COVID, people who are safe, old people, healthy people? How do I build this entire chain? Put yourself in that situation and build a pathway for communicating the importance of this particular science as an example of how you would communicate. And this is really needed right now for everyone. And then see if you can kind of work on this as a project and say, this is how I will do it. This is who I will recruit to do these things. Whoever it is, all of, I mean, please, it doesn't mean that Akshay Kumar, Shilpa Shetty, Kareena Kapoor, Amitabh, it doesn't have to be that way. It could be scientists, it could be doctors, it could be nurses, it could be old people, it could be youngsters, it could be workers, it could be actors, it could be singers. But think of who should do this best, okay? And then put that across in your communication plan. And then the next question is, how do I do it? Do I have online ads? Do I start a blog? If you start a blog, How is it going to reach rural India where they don't even have a smartphone, right? So imagine those things. Like, what are the tools? What are the different tools that I will use? If I have a website, if I have a landing page, if I have small kiosks, right? Or if I should send emails to everyone, SMS, how do I do this, right? So think of the tools that you will use to communicate this, who will do it at different stages, and think of it as a very, very minor uh, thought exercise. You don't even have to put it on paper, but when you go back, just have this slide in mind and say how hard it is to communicate one simple thing. Better take the COVID vaccine because it's good for everyone's health. Okay. Now, to communicate this to different people across the world, across India, it takes so much effort. Think about this and use it as a thought experiment to kind of build your communication exercise. At C Camp, we offer a 5-day communication training for people where we tell them how to communicate their science and technology in different aspects. I took a little bit from each of that to make a small 30, 40-minute kind of a talk. But like Dr. Srivastava said, one of my passions is to help people along the way. So if you do have any questions for me, feel free to connect with me on the net, Insta, Clubhouse now in the last few days, but connect with me and I'll be happy to kind of discuss with you. That's what I have for the day. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Lalith, for a very enlightening talk. And I'm sure all the participants are, still feeling very light after, attending the sessions after session whole day. Okay. It seems you got muted, Lalith.
Oh, did I? No, I'm fine.
Right.
I'm there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Let me just tell all the participants that, when Lalith Kishore gives his lecture in my proteomics course at IIT Bombay, when he talks about 2D electrophoresis or DICE technology, or when he even talks SPR or SPR imaging, even those talks becomes very popular, because he can bring that element of a lot of practicality into discussions. That all of those talks have been very popular in IIT Bombay. So I have been keep inviting him as our regular speaker for different technology display. This is the first time when we are interacting on the lighter note on a different forum on the communication part, and I'm sure you all enjoyed that. So I think this, you are getting the message very clear that whatever work you do, you should definitely first of all think about how much interested you are in, and you should have a pride of doing that. Then only you can do very well. And just start putting the different speakers messages to all of you, that are you just taking this science as a career only as a job, or you are taking this because you feel passionate about it and you feel pride about what you do, right? Because you can get job for many things, but when you do something like this, when you are away from the public, when you are away from lot of details, and you have to still focus and feel happy about it, then you should definitely have pride about what you are doing, and you should enjoy that particular thing with the small things, like nobody else can actually appreciate the enjoyment of seeing that one band of after doing a cloning of a gene and seeing on agarose gel, just when you go to look at under a microscope, and or with the staining, when you see those bands, only that joy, innate joy, what you see in the scientific experiment, only you can feel that, right? So if you feel pride about what you do, then I think you are really into the right path, and that's why I think some of these courses, these workshops will also give you some more idea about where the fields are progressing, where you should choose your career paths. So let's take one or two quick questions for Mr. Lalith Kishore here, and I know we are running slightly late of the session, but I'll still allow one or two questions from the participants. So the first two quick hands, whatever comes, we will take those questions. All right.
I don't see any hands.
I'm sure they're all very happy with your talk. There is a lot of discussion they've already done, but still, if anybody wants to ask anything, yes. Dhanishri, go ahead.
Sir, you in the beginning of the lecture, you said that we should target our audience and then make a value
a value proposition for them.
value prop. But then if we are not talking with them in person, and there is also a chance that they can take it different, like not in the case of bike, but there can be a miscommunication. So how do we avoid that?
Right now, when Dr. Srivastava told me that about 200 people will join this talk, and you will have to talk to them, I had no clue who you were from, who you were. And some of you, like Dr. Srivastava said, are high school, some of you are BTech, some of you are graduate school, some of you are PhD students, they could be faculty. It was very tough. And, you do not hit the target bang on the first time. Don't worry. Take your best shot, take your best guess, and try to be honestly interested in the audience that you're talking to. That's all I did. I said, honestly, I'm interested in the audience that I'm addressing. Let me address what they need. Start from there, and usually you'll find your pathway to communication faster than if you start with yourself. There's another way of starting. I could have started with, this is what I know, this is what I can do. So let me start here, and I will start going. If I meet them on the way, that's good. That would have taken a longer time. Okay. Now, is this the best talk that I would have given on this topic? I doubt it. I will have to get some feedback from you. I will get that feedback from you, maybe. And then I look at it and say, okay, these people wanted more of this. And then I will improve my communication with you. Okay, over a period of time. So do not worry about it as long as you're honest that you're having the other person's needs ahead. I think you will do a very good job communicating.
Great. Next question we can take from Arif Ahmed.
Okay.
Sir, I don't actually have a question. What I understood in a nutshell is that we must know who we are talking to and how we should talk to that person. Only then we can interact better.
Absolutely.
You're absolutely right.
Absolutely. Bang on target, you're right. You are right. No two ways to look at it.
And I must say that all the presenters, whenever you are presenting as a presenter anywhere to any forum, you should make sure that you are, knowing your audience. You know that which audience are going to speak, right? And accordingly, you can put together your presentation. Accordingly, you can put together your contents, because different audience is going to react differently for the same topic and going to expect you different understanding. So I think it's a good idea that you should look into that aspect.
Imagine you walk in suddenly and you realize that your talk is exactly a repeat of what the previous speaker spoke. It'd be so bad. You have to be aware of the entire ecosystem of what's happening, who is saying what to whom, and then accordingly place yourself in that.
Great. Urvi Singh, next. Urvi, you want to speak?
Hello, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
So it was a great talk. I was hoping that if you could elaborate on when we try and simplify for the general audience what we are trying to advocate in our science, then would that generalization or oversimplification make them believe that it's not cutting edge enough?
Yeah. So that there's a very thin line between, simplification of something and, simplify, just, being simple. Some people tend to think that, and some of these cliched things, like some people say, oh, if you can explain it to a 5-year-old boy, then, but there are some technologies and some science that you just cannot explain even to the most educated erudite person. I completely agree with you. There is a point beyond which you cannot simplify things. But the world also goes around. I've had my own bosses who say, you know what? I don't understand it. Therefore, this doesn't make sense. Sorry. This makes sense, except that you are not knowledgeable enough to understand it. Okay? That does exist. And it is a constant. Ask Dr. Srivastava the number of times he would have met people who don't understand what he is doing and therefore assume that it is not doesn't make sense. It is hundreds of times, and that's the big battle we are trying to fight. No, so simplify it as much as you can, and at some level show pride. At some level, I say that at the risk of sounding proud or at the risk of sounding arrogant, sir, this particular part you may not understand, but take it from me. This is what happened. Sometimes I say that. You have to. This is science. This is technology. It's not simple anymore. Everything can't be explained to a 5-year-old or even to a 50-year-old if he doesn't get that, and that is okay. And take that with a pinch of salt and move on. No problem. But that is the battle we fight daily. Imagine convincing. I'm trying to convince. I'll tell you one example. Just if you can allow me, I'm trying to convince the government of India, Department of Health, right now. I'm trying to convince them that for diagnostics kits, if we allow people to manufacture and export diagnostic kits all over the world, that will actually increase the availability of diagnostics in India. Whereas if you restrict the exports, everyone will manufacture only little, and therefore even for India we will not have sufficient. I have data to show it, but beyond one point, people don't get अच्छा तुम बाकी देशों को दे देंगे and all. No, that's not the way it works. It's not science, it's statistics, but it really doesn't work. And so many cases, I mean, in the last 1 year, how many things have we seen? How much of good science gets thrown in the garbage and how much bad science? I mean, we heard stories about neem, about ginger, about garlic, about this kada and that thing. So many, and good science gets dumped, right? I mean, so that is a constant battle. Please keep up the battle, but yeah, I can't say more. I mean, I just can't say more.
Great.
Thank
So
you,
last
sir.
question, Kanak Sangvi, the last question.
Yes, thank you, sir. Sir, is it advisable to make metaphorical connections while talking to general public?
I don't know. I mean, I mean, general public is a very common kind of a brush, but I'm very conscious of one thing is that we should not stoop to the lowest person in. If there's some who you sound low in terms of understanding, we cannot stoop there because usually that percentage is quite small. So we should have a few people in the audience going back saying, I didn't understand it, but he seemed makes for this then team of a ton of people leaving the auditorium saying, ये तो पूरा मैंने LKG में सीख लिया. What the so if between both of those options, I'd rather have a few. He seemed to be very kind. He's talking about. He seemed compelling. I need to do a little. I need to leave people thinking that way rather than people saying he just spoke generally, and I don't want that. So that's my base. That's
Great. Thank you so much, Lalith. Let me also tell that in his capacity as the the senior marketing manager or CEO of the company, Lalith has capacity to sell any instrument. He will just come and convince you with all the features of that given technology that you will get convinced. So those are all, I think, equally important part of your science and communicating your science and products and your instruments well. So with this, I think we will stop this particular session right now. We are quite late of the quiz, which is scheduled right now. So Lalith, I don't know, there is some connectivity issue. It seems I cannot hear you.
I'm there.
You
So
can hear me?
I'm thankful for the invite, and I'd be glad to be associated with such actually, Dr. Shiva. So very good luck to all of the participants. The world is moving online and everything is getting online. So it's important for us to interact more, connect more, be ready for a new world. Even when this thing is over, we will be entering a changed world. So very much appreciate all of you joining in questions, and good luck to all of you for your future endeavors. I will take now. I just have 3 minutes late for another call, so I'll take you. Thank you.
Sure. Great. Thank you so much, Lalith. Wonderful talk. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
All right. So to all the participants now, I'm sure you appreciate the need of communicating your your ideas very well, and you are hearing the different type of speaker, different expertise they all bring. Lalith Kishore brings a lot of industrial side of the experience. And now finally, I think you are ready for taking the quiz, right? Which is due. So of course, some of you are overly eagerly waiting only for quiz, which is not so good. Please learn the essence of what we are talking right now. We are all spending time so that you guys can at least improve something at very early stage of your career, right? That's the more idea. quizzes, participation certificate, the other things they will all come. I think those are not important stuff. At the end, if you can take away some of these important points from this workshop, I think that is what will remain with you for a long time. Okay, so nevertheless, we are going to share you the quiz link shortly. After that, also we will spend some time with you. So please come back, because I think you had some very valid queries in the morning to me, especially asking about what to be done for manuscript writing and some details about that. And also we will announce the name of the presenters who are going to be taken forward for the next stage of presentation, some feedback on their PPTs. So all this is still quite a bit things are due, which you will meet after half an hour after you have done the quiz. Okay. So our team members, please share the quiz link now. We'll give 30 minutes time. Please remain online here, finish your quiz, and then we'll start the next session after that. Okay. Thank you.